Welcome to Local SEO Tactics, where we bring you tips and tricks to get found online. I am producer Caleb Baumgartner, and in today's episode, Bob, Jesse, and Sue discuss the value of having location-specific pages on your website for SEO. This episode will help you learn how to identify your service area so that you can create location pages that improve your SEO and help your business get found by more clients. Do you have questions for us? Visit us at localseotactics.com/questions and let us know. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Local SEO Tactics, where we bring you tips and tricks to get found online. I'm your host, Jesse Dolan, here with Bob Brennan and Sue Ginsburg, ready to help you with your SEO. Sue, what is that fantastic looking background there? There's a pretty identifiable landmark, but
I think it's CNN Tower.
That's
and
nice.
It is the Toronto skyline, beautiful Toronto at night over the water, which would be Lake Ontario, I believe, because we'll be discussing a question today that has come up a few times, but most recently from one of our beloved clients who is in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So here we have, I'm in virtual Toronto.
I'm in real Minnesota. Canada Dry.
Right, Bob.
Represent.
Right.
At least we think. Maybe our Canadian friends can tell us if that's actually from there or not, but at least it says Canada on the can, right?
Right. That's right.
And you got a hockey stick in the corner behind the skis there we can't really see. So
I do. There's a little hockey stick there.
That's Canadian too.
And I think that Canadians are very recently out of serious lockdown, like you can't leave the country, so they're probably all fleeing like I don't know, going to the airport. Where can we get out of here? They're all leaving the country for places that they have not been able to go to because of the quarantine.
Well, and that was all prompted because they made it to the Stanley Cup, Sue. So otherwise it'd still be under lockdown.
Got it.
You know, fun fact, if I can interject this in there too. So we are like in the Minneapolis area here, which, you know, is north, right? We're from the bold north. We're actually farther north than Toronto, Canada. I don't think a lot of people always realize that because you think of Canada being, you know, north of the United States, but where they're at, they're actually south of us, which is always kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, that is weird.
There's your geographic lesson for the day, everybody.
Nice.
All right. I feel smarter already. So, okay, with that question, and thank you, Revive Toronto. Quote of the day. I will start this quote and I'll see how quickly either one of you or our listeners can see where it's from. I think this will be an easy one. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. I'll try and not break into song here. And they're always glad you came. You want to be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You want to be where everyone knows your name.
We in the Twin Cities area, Channel 11. I think a few years ago they finally stopped, but I think we were the last ones in the country that had Cheers reruns, like after the evening news, before like Jay Leno or whatever. I don't know if you guys remember that, but every day for years. So.
Well, Jesse, I'd say you win the t-shirt, but I know you're not putting any t-shirt on over the one you're wearing now. So
that's right. We got the free t-shirt everybody can get if you, let's just take a time out there quick and do that. You got a question. Sue's going to get to the question here from Toronto here in a second, I promise. But if you've got a question, localseotactics.com, go down to the bottom, click on the link for questions and send us your question. If you call in with the phone number there, and we use your question on the show, we're going to send you one of these snazzy free t-shirts that Sue was talking about.
That's right. And everyone will know your name.
That's right.
So the way that this came up, we were optimizing this client's website and adding location pages. And the client asked, can we do neighborhood pages instead of location pages? Which was a new question. I hadn't heard that before. So all good learning. Then the question becomes, when do you want to do neighborhood pages versus the city or in addition to the city? Is it either or? What's the best thing to do? How do you want to optimize for SEO? So what we'll discuss today, how do you choose which location you want your location pages to be? Specifically, do you want it to be the city? You want it to be the neighborhood? You want it to be the lake, whatever. And I think this is a great question because we always need to remember there are two audiences that we're dealing with all the time. One is our clients, prospects, and leads. That's one. The other is Google. And both are equally important. You need to cater to both if you want to get found. So I think it's an important question. Let's hear what Jesse and Bob have to say. We'll all be a little smarter, and we can put our websites up and location pages up where everyone knows our name. It's just what we all as humans want.
Yeah,
Indeed.
you got to get found. I'll kick it off, Bob, with just talk about what location pages are, why we use them for everybody. Short answer is, yeah, you want to do location pages, both for cities and for neighborhoods. And the overall reason we want to do this is, like we say all the time, if you want to be found for red balloons, you got to talk about red balloons on your website. If you want to be found for a particular city, you've got to be mentioning that city on your website. The same is true of a neighborhood. What we like to do is create individual pages for these locations. Again, like we've talked before, every page on your website that you create, you're kind of putting that file into the database for Google, right? Into the file cabinet for Google. And so if we have, whatever market you're serving, if you're in a large metropolitan area and you've got dozens of suburbs, some of those suburbs will have, neighborhoods within them. And actually, if I show everybody here, share the screen, I've got Toronto pulled up. Those of you that are listening on podcasts, we'll try to explain this as I go. If you are watching it on YouTube, you'll clearly see what I'm talking about. So Toronto is in the pin drop here. And as you zoom in and out with Google, you can see kind of the major cities show up. You got Hamilton, Mississauga. Gosh, I hope I say that right all the time. And then the closer you zoom in, though, you'll see more and more suburbs, the smaller ones start to show up. But then you have these neighborhoods, these districts, and depending on exactly where you're at, the what you call them might be slightly different. But as you really zoom in, you just get these kind of block by block neighborhoods and districts that Google's going to show. And the reason I'm illustrating this with Google is to show you, again, here, if I zoom back out, here we are in Toronto, just boom, right down in the middle of Toronto. You've got this, Junction Triangle, Sunnyside, Parkdale, Little Portugal, right? People that are living there or doing business there, they know what they mean when they say these things. Well, guess what? So does Google. They're literally on the map, right? If I click on this Parkdale here, so right now I've got Toronto pulled up. Google has like this knowledge panel for Toronto, things about Toronto, right? Google obviously understands Toronto, Canada, what that is. Well, if I click on Parkdale, you can see here, they know it's Parkdale within Toronto, Ontario, Canada, right? Here's some quick facts. I'm not going to read it all, but you get the idea. Google definitely understands this neighborhood, this district, even though it's not an actual city or incorporated city or things like that. Because Google understands what that is, and I have stopped sharing my screen for all of you audio following along there. Because Google understands what Parkdale is within Toronto, Canada, same thing. Like if you're not talking about Parkdale, but if you want to be found in Parkdale, you got to mention it. Now, what we would do, and this is with us, it depends, right? Your level of competition for your niche here. If you're a nail salon, which is going to be, you're not serving a 20-mile radius for a nail salon, right? They're, much more dense than that. Not saying it's on every block, but definitely neighborhood by neighborhood, right? Walking distance type of a local service. You're going to be want to found in Parkdale, not just Toronto, right? You want to really drill down to that local neighborhood. So the more local your business is, the smaller your radius is for where you're trying to pull people in, the more these neighborhoods are going to be important for your website. You may not have a lot of location pages that leverage cities because you don't need 7 suburbs of relevancy, right? You just need these 7 small districts within 3 miles of your business. So depending on what you are for a business, what your reach is, if you're a service area business that maybe visits client on site, whole different ball of wax, right? You're gonna need a lot of location pages, a lot of relevancy. If you're a storefront where people are coming to you, then definitely be very focused, around where you can likely pull people in from. Make sure you're talking about that on your website. Again, be found for red balloons, talk about red balloons. Now, how we do this is in the old days, you might just like smash all of these cities and neighborhoods into the footer of your website, right? Or just keyword the heck out of them throughout your website. What we like to do here at Intrycks is create an actual page that focuses on each one of these cities. So I'm going to stop talking about neighborhoods in my example here, Bob and Sue, just for kind of to make it easy with less words. But whenever I mention a city or a location, it's interchangeable. Are we talking a neighborhood, a district, some kind of what do they call them, Bob? A parish, right? Down in Louisiana area. I mean, there's different ways to say these same things, right? Depending on where you're at. But I'm just going to use city and Toronto in this case. You're going to want to have a page on your website talking about your location, your city, Toronto. It can be intrycks.com/Toronto, right? On that page, you want to make the assumption that if somebody's searching for, let's just say nail salon Toronto, that page will be the one that they show up on. It may not always be the case with SEO. And if you listen to some of our episodes on silo structure, I think it was episode 60 and 63, because I just looked them up earlier today. We talk about creating pages in a silo structure. Sometimes those pages in your silo will rank individually, but oftentimes they're used to draw relevancy to your main page or your money page. And in this case, if we create a page on our website for Toronto, it definitely could be the page that shows up if you're searching for Toronto nail salon. But depending on if you're a multi-location business or a single location business, your homepage may be the one that ranks for Toronto, even though you created a Toronto page. The reason for that is, again, you're talking about Toronto. You're letting Google know, like, as a business and as an entity, we service/we are relevant to Toronto. So I'm throwing that out there because we are going to talk, Bob, about some things you want to do on that Toronto page to make sure it converts for people and it speaks to people. But I just want to let everybody know that if you go through this process, you create that page for Toronto or whatever your location is, do the things that we're going to talk about. If your homepage is ranking, that's not the end of the world. What you're seeing there is Google choosing your homepage as the most powerful page there. Now, you may or may not want to go in and tweak your Toronto page to get it be the one ranking, right? There's reasons for doing that. But the overall thing here is we're creating content to tell Google we're relevant to Toronto. Google's sticking that into its database, and it's then going to give you relevancy and hopefully ranking and exposure in Toronto. Now let's jump back to the construct of that page for your location, your neighborhood, whatever it's going to be, your city. You definitely want to create one of these for each of the neighborhoods and cities that you want to be found for on your website. If you're a multi-location business, you should have a Google My Business listing for each of your locations, right? Let's just say if you had 3 businesses, one is in Toronto, 2 are in whatever other cities. Now, in that case, your homepage won't be the one that shows up if somebody searches for nail salon Toronto. Your Google My Business for the Toronto location will be created and link to that Toronto page. That tells Google that that's the powerful page for Toronto. You're linking to it from Google My Business. You have an actual business at that location. And then your content on that page, you're going to have your business hours, address for that location. It's kind of, I guess my point is there's 2 versions of a location page. There's one that represents your actual business having a location or a branch in this city or in this neighborhood. That's going to take on a lot of like your contact information, hours, directions, things like that. If you don't have a physical location for your business in this city or neighborhood you're targeting, then you have more of just like a regular like location page, if you will, right? You're going to talk about that city. You're going to draw relevancy to that. But in that case, that may be where your homepage shows up instead. Now, neither one of these, Bob, just because we do want to play on the safe side that assuming Google will rank our Toronto page over our homepage, even if we don't have a location in Toronto, I think we should speak that it's pretty important. You want that sucker to convert, right? Make people know that they're in Toronto when they hit that Toronto page and don't back out.
Yeah, I mean, and you can correct me on this, but I mean, that's where you're putting maybe on that page some pictures of major sites or what have you.
Like
and
Sue's picture back there, right? Like getting some landmarks and
so they, they gain confidence. And then again, this isn't relevant to everybody. I mean, it's just, whether it's a nail salon or what have you, how far are people going to travel for certain services, and or it's about conversion. So if you're living in Hell's Kitchen in New York or one of the boroughs or whatever the case is, you're going to type plumber, Hell's Kitchen, or electrician, or somebody that's can provide that service in fast order and has a level of trust there, and that's all part of that conversion piece.
Yep.
In location pages, with various neighborhoods, you have to look at population density. So as for instance, Minneapolis or smaller towns, let's say like Rochester, Minnesota, that's a secondary town, it might have one or two neighborhoods, but for the most part, it's going to be really tricky. So, so take all this with a grain of salt. If you're in a smaller town, a secondary or tertiary town, neighborhoods, go ahead and do it, but that's your CD type priority that you're going to work on. I don't know if that makes sense.
And I'll interject there, Bob, and tell people back to my example with Google Maps, like zoom in. If you're wondering, like, this suburb that I live in, does it even have neighborhoods? It may, for you locally, you may refer to certain developments as neighborhoods, but zoom in, see if you can get Google to show names like I did in that example. If they're showing them, then those are worth mentioning, because if Google's aware of them, you can draw relevancy to it within Google, right? They've already kind of shown you that. So
yeah, and I don't know where would you put this, Jess, on on the pecking order of like things to focus on for SEO? Would you, is it in the top 10? Is it lesser, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. We put it pretty high on the list. If we take on a new client, first we go through, make sure all of the foundational stuff is there, so you're not throwing good money after bad. But one of the first things we go after for creating new content is location pages, because so much of what we do in Google is geographic based. And I say what we do, meaning us, Intrycks, local SEO, right? Our goal, if somebody hires us, is to get them found for people that are searching locally. And using these geographic references of the cities, towns, neighborhoods is a big part of what people do in search. Or if they don't, if they're using near me or things like that, and Google is the one deciding where you're at, what you're looking for. Point is, geographic reference makes a big deal in local search, and we put it very high on the list. Depending on the exact client, right? Like if they're doing auto repair, oil change, transmission, radiator, sometimes we might make sure they have those pages up first to say, like, this is the services we offer, and then here's the locations that we are relevant to. But it's those same things to Google. You got to have your keyword and your geographic things like figured out, and you have to have pages for those to draw that relevancy. So hope that answers your question there. But again, do a little hack, zoom into your neighborhood, zoom into your spot you're wondering, and see what pops up, for cities, towns, neighborhoods, and references, and draw those items and those relevancy into your site, into your pages, I should say.
So where do you draw the line? Because you have the city, you have suburbs, and then you have neighborhoods in the city, neighborhoods in those suburbs. You could be going on and on and on and on. How do you put
I would draw the line literally as in, like, where do you think that you have relevancy? Again, if you're a nail salon, you can't be targeting 20 miles away from you. You're like, where do your customers come from? Or where, again, if you're going to them, how far do you travel? Like, that radius around your business, Sue, is the line. If that has 5 cities or neighborhoods in it, or 75, depending on your business, that's going to be your number then. Where clients do get freaked out sometimes is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have like 75 pages on my website, each one talking about a different city. That's horrible. That's going to be super confusing to everybody. And I think something people have to understand when we say this, what we're talking about is, if you had 75 location pages on your website, you're not going to go to your homepage and like pick location from 75 locations. Like, this isn't part of the user experience for all your web visitors, as far as like from a navigational standpoint. These are just landing pages that are created to show up in Google search. If somebody types in one of those 75 cities and lands on that landing page, like Bob said, you're going to have pictures. It's going to be about that area. And you're not going to see the other 74 pages. You're not even going to know that they exist. They're not, again, part of the navigational linking. You're not choosing it for options. So you shouldn't be fearful of having a large number of location pages on your website, because it's kind of hidden from the public view, if you will, right? That's, like you said, Sue, on the front side. You're designing your website and doing this information, one for your human beings and one for Google. These pages are created first and foremost for Google to communicate the relevancy to these locations. Then you do have to assume that human beings will land on them when they pop up as landing pages, and they got to convert, like we're saying with Bob. So,
Jesse, is there any downside to having much of the same content on a page that's going to be two neighborhoods next to each other, that it might be like, oh, I can go this way or I can go this way, where's the closest one to me?
Yeah.
And how micro does that have to be?
That's a great question. I kind of lump that into, people ask about duplicate content, sometimes. So number one, these pages are unique. They're going to have unique URLs. They're going to be mentioning the cities. Maybe they're 80% the same, one city to the next, right? These location pages. That's fine. They're unique enough in the eyes of Google. Again, I challenge everybody, go to walmart.com or target.com and pull up their store locator. You're seeing the same thing here. They're all the same template page, just with different, address, phone number type stuff. So as long as these pages are, some sense of unique, you're okay. Now, more long-term for SEO, we always talk, for SEO, what do you want to rank for? Are you ranking for it? If not, what kind of corrective actions do you need to do? Something I would look at is if you create 75 location pages and 6 months later, 3 of them are ranking and 72 are not, you'd want to dive into those. Are some of those indexed by Google? Is Google just ignoring them? Is it what we'd call thin content, where it's just not relevant? You may have to go back and beef some of these up, right? If you let's talk about Toronto again. To Bob's point, that's dense, that's urban, as compared to some small town, 2 hours away. There's probably a lot of competition in Toronto, and you may have to do things on that Toronto location page to draw more relevancy to Toronto and pull in more facts or create more supporting pages around it, like building a little silo around that Toronto location page. You may have to go further to really get the attention you need and to show Google that you're authoritative for that town. But again, that's case by case. That's much more, what kind of competition is there? What kind of industry are you in? And I could go down a few different kind of, wild goose chases in those areas. But in general, create location pages for every neighborhood, location, borough, parish that you want to be found for. They can be very similar, make them unique enough so they're pertinent, to each location, different images, different text in certain spots. And just be mindful of if this is working or not. Do those tests. Like we always say, Bob, you got to test this stuff, make sure it works. If you ripped off 75 location pages, go back later. Are you ranking in those 75 towns and cities for your homepage or for that location page? Either way, did it work or not? And if it didn't, again, go back and kind of reconnoiter on that on a town by town or city by city basis.
Really impactful. And I don't know if this is something that nobody thinks about or if everybody thinks about and doesn't know. I think that's really, really impactful stuff. Really big, really big. So thank you. Okay, I will then say, if you remember one thing and one thing only from this discussion, you want to do location pages for both cities and neighborhoods for the radius where your customers come from, or where you want your customers to come from, but I think more truthfully where they do come from, where they might be searching from. And applying the quote, sometimes you want to go where everyone knows your name. That's typically going to be your neighborhood for people who are searching.
As we're talking on this too, and we chatted a little bit before we hit the record button, Bob and Sue. I think we'll probably do a separate episode, more of the long form episodes that talk about building a good location page, because there's things like Bob, you mentioned, GPS coordinates. We're talking about that within your schema. There are things beyond just creating the location pages that you need to do, right, to have a powerful location page. And we will come back and take a deeper dive. I think this is an important topic for everybody on how to make a good and effective location page, right? So, all right. Anything else you want to add, Sue?
No, but I think we just have to say cheers to that.
That's good. Cheers. All right. Hopefully that helps some of you out. Don't be bashful. Create those pages. And again, don't be worried about how this looks on your website. Does it clutter it up and make it messy? It's not, per what we had just said. If you have any questions on this or anything else, reach out to us. Go out to localseotactics.com, scroll to the bottom, click on the button for a question. We can follow up on this if you got a new question, right? Again, we're talking about this because it's a question that's come up. If you've got a question, somebody else does too, we'll answer it on the show. Send it on in. We'll give you a shout out and help you out. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye now.